This is the Men's Room Podcast, where relief is your duty and your innate self is welcome. I'm your host, Ish Mendoza, and I'm touched you stopped by. Today's episode is featuring social media personality and the host of the Epiphany podcast, Jorge Valencia. Jorge is an incredibly talented and fascinating individual. We had the chance to talk about his journey to podcasting and his experiences with psychedelics and growing up in the Central Valley. And I'm really happy that Jorge had the chance to stop by. And I might be biased, but it's a really great episode. And I'm happy for you to hear it. And as always, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, drop us that 5-star review. If you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and engage with our poll. If you're listening and watching on YouTube, drop a thumbs up and a comment. And no matter where you're listening to it, please share with your family, your friends, and the world. We want this to reach the masses. Drop a follow to the Epiphany podcast and check out all the cool things that Jorge is doing. And I'm really happy that you're here on the journey. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I want to pick your brain a little bit about your podcast journey a little bit, because I know when I research someone or I kind of like take in the content or whatever, I like to start from the beginning and the end and then find out something.
Oh shit! Okay.
Where I found you though was through your episode with Micah, so Central Valley Podcast.
Sick.
That's how I found out about your podcast, and then from there I was like, all right, let me take a look at further that. So I like the idea of the Epiphany, but yeah. I'm curious about like where that stemmed from. You used to be called like Jay Creates or something like that before, right?
Yeah.
So how did that become to be?
All right, so I'm gonna keep it a buck. So, so the way that the Epiphany podcast came, like the name, I was on shrooms with my buddy.
Okay.
Right? And we were just talking about life. We were talking about fatherhood, and we were talking about like, so originally where this stemmed from. Okay. So I'll give you the whole.
Yeah, please.
Let's
let our hair down a little bit. And
yeah. So all right. So my dad, he's from El Salvador, right? I'm a first generation in that regard, right? So we're sitting there, right? And my dad, like, he doesn't understand what I do, but he wants to understand, right? So one day he asked me, he's like, "Mijo, what do you do?" He's like, What do you like, how does this work? And for me, that really meant a lot to me, that I was like, oh, cool. I can actually show him and tell him what I want to do, right? So I had all my gear in my car because I wanted to set up at the time at his house. So I took all of my gear, all of it, and I just made a mock-up podcast. I set up everything, and I pressed record. I still have the video. And I'm walking around explaining to him in the background everything, and I had the camera on him. And and he was looking at, and I didn't think of it at the time. He was looking at me, and he was really trying to comprehend and understand and retain what I'm talking about. I'm talking to him about A cam, B cam, the lighting, making sure it's not peaking, all these things. And he's like, okay. He's like trying to understand me, right? And then I was like, that really meant a lot to me. You know what I mean? That he just took the time to try to understand that. So bringing it back to when I was with my friends, we were just like talking about all of that stuff, my dad problems, his dad problems. And then we were just talking about so much stuff. And then boom, I literally had an epiphany. I was like, I want to talk about these types of things on my own podcast. Cause like, as you probably seen on my stuff, like men's mental health isn't talked about. Right. And if I could capture all of this on film, and have someone have an epiphany, like a grand realization that like, damn, this is what I've always wanted to do. That's the only reason I've had florists, cosmetologists, barbers. Like I tell people off camera, like I may have not deemed them interesting in my own personal taste, but that's not to say that someone else won't. Like I took that from music producers, because music producers will be like, they'll get an artist's song. Hey, what do you think about this? I'm not really fucking with it. Next thing you know, that song was a top 10 song on the platforms. It's like, to each its own, you know? So that's kind of why, that's where the Epiphany thing came about. I wanted someone to help somebody, because I know for me, I tried out college. I love psychology. I was supposed to be a psych major. I wanted to be a psychiatrist, right? I just didn't resonate with everything else, like learning about history and this and that, of everything else, not the history of like psychology. So I was like, okay, like let's take it back to like the 60s, the 50s. Working blue collar jobs and like union jobs and having a trade, that was the norm. And then if you went to college, that's oh shit, right? Then there was a shift in you got to go to college, and if you don't go to college, what the fuck are you doing, right? So now we're at this forefront where my generation's realizing like, wait a minute, the degree is not holding as much weight unless you're in STEM, right? And it's like, okay, what if you don't want to go into the union? What if you want to be a construction worker? What if there's other things, right? I was like, let me get all these other kids and people my age that are doing something successful, that it didn't call for a trade school job. It didn't call for anything. It's in their own lane, you know? So I wanted to get everyone else in their lane, so maybe someone can hop on that lane, you know? So
yeah, it's an interesting, you're exactly right, because so being a child of someone that's culturally not from the US or has influences from a different country, the American dream was always like, you send your kids to school, you live, you know, you work, you have a nuclear family and all these things. That's the idea of the American dream. When you figure out like, maybe college isn't for me, maybe it's trying to fit a round circle into a square peg, and you see the ideas that like, number one, like I went to college, and I basically, I didn't have the luxury of like having parents that like paid for school or anything like that. And I was working a full-time job. So I was like, I took like the 7-year route basically. Okay. And cause I had to be working all the time, you know, taking night classes and things like that. And in the grand scheme of things, I had the epiphany that maybe college isn't right for someone, you know, right for everyone, I should say. Unless you're going into a field that requires a degree, there's a lot more life skills that can be learned through living, you know, and especially like for a young person, I think college is important for someone maybe that's coming out of high school, just to see something through, like, you know, maybe you don't have the track record of like finishing something, you know? And so that's all that represents, is that like this degree, this piece of paper is just showing somebody that can finish something. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, that doesn't hold as much weight for someone that's actually successful. Every billionaire is I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure most billionaires didn't finish college.
That's literally what Elon Musk said. He's like, I didn't do this and that, but I paid people from Harvard. People from Harvard work for me. Yeah. And he was like, well, like for him, a degree just shows you can start and finish something, you know?
Yeah. And the other aspect of that too is, so I think with the American culture, having the idea of like sending your kids away for school, paying for school and all this thing, it's nice to dream about, but when you have a working class parent that can't pay for school, then you got to figure it out yourself. And there's another added layer. So for me, it was kind of like, my parents were like, when are you going to work? And like, when are you going to start working? When are you going to start contributing to the family? Yeah. And it wasn't about like college. It was kind of like, hey, you got to start, you know, getting some experience and contributing to this house if you're going to live under this house, you know? So that's the weird dichotomy of like, you know, growing up in a Hispanic household, you know? Yeah. Because I don't think it's the same for a lot of people that come out of high school that have parents are like, you know, I'm paying, you know, $50,000 a year for you to go to school, you know?
Because I know for me, like my dad would have loved for me to go to college, right? But people that know me personally know I'm stubborn and I'm very hard-headed. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like a lot of people could say it's either my way or the highway, right? And I've tried to learn a lot to tone that down, right? But the way I am, I'm a spitting image of both of my parents. My parents are the exact same way of their own families. My mom would walk in the room, let's be careful what we say around my mom, because she's gonna either check you on or she's gonna say what it is, and vice versa with my dad. And I'm a spitting image of both of them, right? So I know for me, I don't know. Sometimes I go back and forth with it, bro. Sometimes I feel like, fuck, I should have I should have went to college. Sometimes I think about that.
Yeah.
But then I look at the life experiences and the things that I've gained from not going to school. That I'm like, there's a lot of people that are just graduated that I run circles around mentally, you know. And my mom, before she had passed, she worked at UC Merced, and she would say it's amazing how some of these engineers are so smart in their own regard, but they can't do simple fucking tasks because they're so caught up on the data, the engineering, this and that, and X, Y, and Z, but then they don't have any life experience. They've been so caught up in that book, which is nothing wrong with that, you know?
Book smarts versus street smarts, you know? Like,
Exactly. So sometimes I think like, I'm like, damn, but then what am I really what I'm really craving? I wasn't craving the knowledge. I am craving the knowledge a little bit, but I'm also craving the life experience. I wanted the dorm life. I wanted the frat life. I wanted to experience all those things that I didn't, you know, but I mean,
yeah, I mean, so the short answer is that is sometimes maybe the life that you lead doesn't align with the timeline of that, but if you decide that at some point in your life, maybe you do want to pursue psychology, like, you know, you have enough of these conversations, you're like, you know what, I should be getting paid for this, you know,
right?
You know, giving people advice, whatever. You have the luxury of making a choice later in life too, you know. So don't ever. I'm a little older than you, so if I can give you some advice,
I'd appreciate that, man.
Looking back, I would say it's never too late to make, you know, to figure out where you're at in life, you know. And I think that's we got to get rid of that stigma a little bit more, because damn, like it's rough to be in a place. I think there's a lot more of us now that are thinking through this and figuring life out on the fly. And sometimes you got to make shifts. You got to make like you know, you got to change directions, change courses a little bit. And that may look different, you know, to different people, you know. That might look like going back to school in your 50s or something, you know, who knows? But
yeah, that was my biggest trouble, bro. I'm gonna be because if you don't mind me asking, how old are you, bro?
I'm 39.
39?
Yeah.
See, so I'm 23.
Okay.
I just turned 23 in March, right? And something about me is it's a blessing and a curse that I'm way too hyper analytical on everything, bro. Like I hyper analyze my decisions, everything, and like, you know how like that Spanish saying like no tienes vergüenza, like you're not ashamed. My parents always taught me like if you're ashamed, you shouldn't have done it. You know, if it, like, don't be ashamed of anything you do. Stand on it. If you did it, you did it. If you fucked up, you fucked up. But stand on it. So for me, I've always been like, this is me, right? And like what we're talking about with that, I'm just so scared about taking the wrong lane and then looking back and be like, fuck, like this is my life. This is my reality. This is where I'm at. Even though I could have done this, I could have done that. And something about me that I'm not anybody in the grand scheme of things, but I know whatever I put my mind to, I could probably be successful at, you know? So that's what's scary to me, that knowing I could go a lot of different routes, but would I be content with that specific route? Because one of my inspirations that I had on the pod, he told me happiness is a combination of contentment and fulfillment, doing everything every day for free and being content with it, or like it's fulfilling, and knowing that it's enough, you know? So I think I'm just too caught up in my own future to where I'm like, fuck, am I content with this, and is this fulfilling for me, or is it not, you know? Because then I tried to talk to a lot of people my age, and they're not on that level. We're so caught up in enjoying our own lives, you know, like, well, fuck it, I'm going to college, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then like older people can say, you blink and you're 30, you blink and then you're 40. And it's like, fuck, no one ever stops to just pump your brakes and realize like, damn, like let's look at things for what they are, you know?
And there's too much of us not, so there's a lot of pressure from society for you to be at a certain level in your life at a certain time period as well, you know, like to get married at a certain age, to have kids at a certain age and stuff. It's like that stuff. Like I had my first kid when I was 33, you know, so
okay, cool.
There's a lot of, if that was your timeline, you got 10 years, you know, like you got,
I mean, I would take that timeline for sure any day.
You don't have kids?
No.
Okay.
So. I always say if I was in the financial position too, I would. Because for me, for the most part, I had a blessed childhood, but then I also know like after like 6th grade, it was pretty rough, you know? So if I not necessarily live through my kids in a bad way, Like, I'm not wanting some football dream or whatever. I'm saying, like, just in general, like, to recreate the memories, recreate a healthy household, you know? Like, I would love to do, not to say that my household wasn't, you know, but like how I said, like, my mom had passed, she had cancer when I was young, you know? So then to see that, you know, and then also my dad has heart problems. So then him having his own health conditions, having to deal with that, and then looking at both of my parents like that, you know, it was pretty hard. It was pretty, looking back now, and now that I'm kind of addressing all of my trauma, it's like it did some damage. It did some fucking damage that I didn't really realize until I addressed it. You know, because my issue that I'm learning is I'm really good at suppression. I'm really good at, like, fuck it, keep going, handle. My family, something wrong or anything, they just look to me. They're like, okay, fuck it. Like, I want to be a pillar of strength for my family, right? But then I look back and I'm like, well, fuck, I'm only 20. I'm the baby of my generation, of my family, and I shouldn't necessarily be that person, but I am, and that's my reality, and I'm okay with that. But then I put my own baggage and my own personal shit on the back burner, and I'm like, fuck. I look back, I'm like, damn, I have a lot of shit that's fucked up, you know. So if I could give my kids a different, more healthy environment than I did, I mean, shit.
That's the goal, honestly. You know, that's the goal for everybody. I want to take a step back a little bit. You talked about some pretty hot button topics, and I'm very curious about. I myself, I'm weary about it because, you know, I've smoked weed and stuff in the past, and that's always been anxiety inducing for me. And so, like, the idea of a psychedelic, it's scary to me. But I really think that there's some benefits to psychotherapy in such a way. So I'm curious about your journey with that.
Yeah,
How was that for you?
Yeah, and as a disclaimer, bro, I'm an open book. So whatever, like, obviously, I could learn a lot from you. But if there's anything you want to ask, just throw it in there, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm very curious because I've had, you know, people share their experience. I've had a therapist that does psychotherapy, so he has guided journeys through.
Oh shit! Through like what, like ketamine or like
ketamine, ayahuasca. Like, he's done ayahuasca explorations and things like that, and then microdosing for mushrooms.
So how I just did it last year, right? I've had buddies that had been doing it for long times, right? But the biggest thing for a non, like, medical advice was, don't take it if you're in a bad headspace. You're gonna have a bad trip and you're gonna be fucked up. And then you might have ego death, and that I've never experienced that, knock on wood, but like that always made me sway away from it. And people always said, do it with people you trust that you feel safe with. So I was like, whatever. So the way I've done it, because I yet to do it in its purest form of just like shrooms.
Okay.
The way I've done it is, my generation's fucking awesome to where they have it in a chocolate candy bar, right? So like we earlier talked about, I'm so hyper analytical about things. They put it in a measured state, so you know how much you're getting, right? And then the
amount of pieces you choose is okay.
Yeah. So one is 10, 20, 30. And then what I liked was on the back of the packaging, they showed you like suggestions. So 1 to 3 was microdosing. 3 to 4 is you feel mindful. And then 3 to like 6, you're mindful. And then the whole bar, it'll make a joke that says the walls will melt, right? So it kind of, for me, I enjoyed that because I had a bit of control in it. I was like, fuck, okay, I'll take a little bit. I took it, and bro, Jesus, it was so enlightening, man.
So walk me through, like, exactly, like, so how long does it take to take effect, and then what do you start feeling, and then where do you get to?
My fault.
No, I'm just curious, like.
Yeah. So the very first time the time that I'm referring to about the Epiphany thing, it wasn't in the bar. It was in the form of an ice cream cone. So like, you know how like the bottom of the ice cream cone, it has that fudge?
Yeah.
So it was just a fudge and a waffle cone. And I took it, and we're just shooting the shit. And then it said about 45, like an hour or whatever.
To hit its like maximum potential.
But I don't know. I don't remember off the rip how much it was, but I knew when it started hitting. I can, we're not going to throw it up, but after the thing I could show you a picture, but like, I just felt like an elephant was on my chest, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. It was like I was like, fuck, okay, shit's happening right now, and I started feeling like a heaviness, and I was like you know when I don't know if like you ever know that paper bag meme where like
Oh yeah, like hyperventilating.
Yeah, hyperventilating. Yeah. That's the sensation I felt, but in a calming sense. Like I would go like, and then I just would feel myself, and then I'm really
you almost feel like every breath like
yeah
exaggerated a little bit.
Yes, exactly. So then I was like, all right, fuck it, I'm cool. And I'm just talking myself through it because I know myself and I'm always in my head, not in a bad way. I'm just analyzing everything, you know, because I love to write, you know. So I'm like, it's okay. These are the first effects. And I was just like, I was like journaling it in my head mentally. I was just like, okay, shit's happening. And then I'm looking forward, and then the fence, because I did it in the backyard, and the fence just starts going like this, just vibrating ever so slightly, just vibrating. And I was like, okay. And I look over to the left, and then someone told me, they're like, dude, your eyes are like crazy right now. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I have like hazel eyes. So then they took a picture, and my pupils were like, I had no color anymore.
It's all black color.
Yeah, so I was just taking in. And so then from like a camera's perspective, I was just taking information. That's what that told me. They took a picture of it and they showed me.
Did you record it?
No, I have a picture of my eye.
Oh, just the picture.
Yeah. Because if you look at it for face value, you don't know.
Right.
Unless you look at their eyes.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, anyway, so that time it was a lot of more mental than it was visuals. If we're talking, fine. If I stop and I maybe like focus on the pattern on your door, then stuff starts to morph a little bit. It was just this, but my mental was just like boom. It felt like a door was opened, and then I started just feeling like thoughts. And then I don't recommend, this is why I agree with what they said about taking it with the right people, because I definitely agree, if you're anything like me, you will start to analyze people. And sober or not or anything, I'm always analyzing people, and I'm big on body language, you know?
I do the same.
So I'm looking at them and I'm like, I just asked, and I don't know, that normal I wouldn't have done this, but I was like, it was just really awkward. There was a lot of tension. There was a lot of alcohol involved on top of it. They were drunk, and they're just like just, you know, just tripped out, just all drunk, you know, because me and my buddy were the only ones that took it. So I look and I'm like, am I the only one that feels awkward as fuck right now? I said that out loud, and everyone's like drunk and looking at me, and at 22, 23, everyone has their own mental insecurity. So who knows? But all of them just looked like, oh shit. I just said something that like was there, but no.
You threw a bomb in the room, and
yeah. And then everyone's like, nah, bro, I'm cool. And then people just started like, it add a lot of tension. So then the people that were there left, right? And they just went in their own way. And then it's just me and my buddy that were on it. And then we had one of his best friends there, and he was just drinking, so he was fine. So then I asked him, I was like, bro, was I the only one that felt that, bro? And then he was like, I mean, kind of, my boy, but I wasn't finna say anything. And I was like, oh, shit, you know? So there was that. And then...
Do you start, like, processing stuff, like, internally right away? Like, or thinking about, like, stuff? Because I know you said that you had, you had some traumas that you kind of felt through, right? Is that happening right away, or is that more focused on the upcoming sessions?
No, it was conversation.
Okay.
It kind of came down to a conversation, because after that, like I think in this past year in 2024, those bars that I was referring to, I took them on my own, and I didn't really have the that same like ideology or knowledge. That those times were like more visual, you know. So to answer your question, I feel like a lot of it was just like making sure you have the right people to get that out of you, because I very well could have felt those things, but if I don't feel comfortable enough to share that with someone, and even if I did feel comfortable enough to share it, but they're not retaining it, it didn't really fucking do it. I was like talking to a tree, you know, because I know you could probably attest to that. There's some people that you've probably shared some things to, and it just doesn't resonate with them. It just,
yeah.
You know, so to have those correct people that you can have those honest conversations, I feel like makes a big factor in it.
Yeah. So from my research, and these are just conversations that I've had with friends and other people that have, you know, been around psychedelics. there are two opinions of one. Depending on the levels that they're taking, they really are looking for an expansion of mind, maybe for creative purposes. And that kind of sounds like the visual aspect of things. You know, maybe you're seeing something like if you're a graphic artist or a painter or whatever, you probably can see some like crazy patterns or whatever too. And then the other aspect is the therapeutic element of this, where you can process things. You can maybe wrestle with things that you're going through. That's the part that kind of scares me a little bit, because I don't know. So number one, like I feel like I'm so much into my own head that I will like fight myself almost, you know, and like have this internal battle. I also don't like, I'm of the opinion, like I have the opinion of like, if it ain't broken, you know, why try to fix it, you know? So I'm like
what, like when you say that though, what, or like what in terms of what, like your mentality or?
Yeah, I'm like what skeletons in my closet are going to come up with me processing something like that, you know?
Okay.
What am I going to wrestle with that I haven't, you know, because I like, in the grand scheme of things, I look at my life and I'm like, I had a great childhood. I've got a beautiful family. I've got a lot to be thankful for. And I'm like, why do I need to find these things, you know? But I understand that there's a tremendous value in like putting yourself in a vulnerable state to process things, you know?
Yeah.
That's what just is, to be honest, I'm scared of that. You know, I'm scared to put myself in a vulnerable state.
Well, I feel like that begs a question then. Are you doing it for recreational, or are you doing it for informational? Are you know?
Yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So I don't know.
Maybe you could find it once you take
exactly.
it. Okay, so then if you're looking at it from that lens, then I could understand how that could be difficult.
Right.
So I know definitely for me, I didn't know. I went into it with an open mind. I went into it like.
Was it recreational, like in your initial intent?
Yeah. So me and my boy, I've been wanting to take it for a long time. I saw him taking it. I saw him taking acid. I saw him taking crazy stuff. And he always seemed relatively okay, right? So then I knew somewhere where I could get it safely. So I took it. And I told him, I was like, hey, if I'm gonna do it with anybody, I'd rather do it with you. And then for him, it's just another day. Fuck it, bro. I'm there. So I took it. And that, hands down, like, was one of the most, not eventful, I don't even know what, informational days of my life. I learned so much about me. I learned so much about how I thought. I learned so much about my family, my friends, because I can't speak for anybody else that had their experiences, but what I learned, Jesus, I feel like it took a film off of me, and I looked at everyone in their purest form. And so, for example, I looked at my friend, right? Well, that left, and I said, okay, this is really random, but if you're okay with this tangent.
Yeah.
But I saw him and his girlfriend, right? He has a really messy relationship with his girlfriend, right? And I was like, okay, I don't know why. Like, I don't know. So he was drunk, so I took him to his room, or to hit the couch, and I was like, why is he doing this? Like, why is this fool with this girl? You know? And I found at that, of course, it's subjective, right?
Yeah.
And this was my take on it, but it made a lot of sense to me. I was like, damn, well, he's used to a lot of toxicity in terms of relationships, and then here's a woman that is older than him that is at his level of toxicity and all of these things, but she cares. And if she cares, then as men, we want that nurturing side of things, right? Mm-hmm. And she was providing all of these things on top of taking care of him the way other women wouldn't. And there it was. And of course, I'm giving you like a synopsis of it all. But then I looked at them now, and here they are. They're happy. They're still together. And I never understood, for some back reference, they would always argue, always this and that. But then they always found each other again. And I was like, damn, maybe is that what loving hard means? You know, but just because they're loving hard and being toxic doesn't mean necessarily it's always healthy. You know, so that's where that was another thing that it helped me lift a film. And when I look at people now, I'm like, okay, like I look at them like, what are they going through? And not to say you need psychedelics to do that, but I'm just telling you that's what happened for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, so the caveat to that is maybe the reason why I haven't, number one, besides the fear and the fear of the unknown really is what it comes down to. But besides that, I think there's a lot more, I mean, this podcast has been very therapeutic for me, like, yeah, it gives me the opportunity to kind of talk about things. You mentioned it earlier, is that as men, we typically don't talk about feelings and other shit like that, like it's just like, it's mushy shit,
Yeah.
But it's been really helpful for me to kind of put this has been a little bit more vulnerable for me, to share about how we feel, how we deal with things and things like that too. So it's been really helpful for me. And I always feel like this podcast, it's still for me, and that's kind of what I started with that mindset of like, well, this is going to be for me. This is going to give me, cause like, it's been a combination of like, friends that have interesting stories. Also people I really wanted to get to know, you being one of those, like I just want to hear the interesting stories about, it's my pleasure to do
Appreciate
that. But it's also been, I think, helpful for other people to kind of understand it too. I didn't intend this to be like, I mean, it's a play on words for the men's room, but it's not exclusively for men, but it's challenging for men. And I think that a lot of,
like as the viewer or the guest?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, to number one, the hope is that maybe somebody hearing this feels comfortable about them sharing, talking about stuff. And then also for the guests as well, to challenge them a little bit in expressing that, themselves as well, sharing their story, like, people that have had like weight loss things and mental health things, and, admitting that you go to therapy and other things like that too, that's hard. And, we don't talk about that until we're like, hit rock bottom pretty much, So I want to get ahead of that. I want to live my life a little bit more proactive in a lot of ways, So this has been really helpful for me, and I think that I'm still having fun doing it.
Good, man. I applaud you for that, because I know that's ideally what I wanted. But sometimes that's not always the reality. And I feel like, although this isn't my podcast, this is the first time I've actually had the opportunity to actually talk about that with somebody. And I know that it's weird, bro. It's like, life works in weird ways, man.
Yeah.
I was just talking to one of my buddies at the gym about this yesterday, and I looked at him like he has his shit together. He has a lot of things. And I saw him at the gym yesterday, and he was not doing good, bro. And he was not doing good at all. And I was talking to him. I was like, "What's up, man? You good?" Because he just started getting into like dabbling into like religion.
Okay.
And so did I, because like I'm religious by association, I feel.
Yeah,
like,
every Hispanic is.
right? So, no, literally, bro. Because like my mom was, like it was weird. My mom was Catholic and my dad was Christian.
Yeah.
So I got a little dabble in both. So for me, it never really resonated until this year, right? So then I talked to him because he's always posting things, and he wasn't doing good, man. And I was like, "What's up, man? Are you okay? Like, let's talk about it." He's like, "Nah, man. I'm just going through it. I'm fighting my shit." And I was like, "I'm here, bro. Like, I know that sounds fucking weird, but like, if you just want to talk about it, I know because I reached out to him about my shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to put on that burden on him. But then I was also like, well, fuck, it looks like he has his shit together, so I'm gonna ask." And then come to find out, that's not how it appeared. So then he's like, "No, I'd appreciate that, man." And then he's like, "But I don't know. I don't know if I'm comfortable. Like, it's kind of weird." And I was like, "Hey, bro, look, as men, like, it's not fair if I say hi to you at the gym, you say hi to me, and we're like, and we call ourselves friends, and you go to your car and I go to mine, and we're just fucked up, man. We're just fuck, bro. Like for me, I don't know about you, but I love sitting in my car, bro. Like when I get to my house, I just sit in my car. I'm just like, before I go to my family, just decompress.
Is it decompressing? Yeah, it is.
Right. So for me, I'm like, that's my thing. But if we're gonna call ourselves friends, what kind of friends are we if we're both struggling two different battles and we don't even know we're fighting demons, and like men, like you already know, like men's mental health and like the suicide rate is highest in men because we're just told shut the fuck up and handle. You're sad about your friends. Girls, if they're sad about their friends, fuck her. That all their girls come around each other.
They lift each other up.
Yes, and then what do guys do? Fuck it, bro. You don't need nobody. Hey, we're fucking men. We'll handle. No, but then what? Like 6 months later, we're sad about our own shit. It's like,
Yeah, and we there's such a, I mean, the society's pressures and even the pressures that we put on ourselves, of carrying the weight and the burden. Me being a family man, I've got a tremendous amount of things that are constantly just flooding my mind, man. Like thinking about like providing, protecting, being available, you know, not being, I don't want the only emotions that I show to be negative emotions, you know? I mean, every man has like the trope of like the grumpy dad. It's real because it's like, you know, you're at your wit's end in a lot of ways. You come home and you've met your capacity, and all you show is the anger side of things, you know? Like and that's why like historically there's like been the you know, the alcoholic dad, the unavailable dad, the workaholic dad. It's because we don't process these things, you know? We don't talk about the things that are bogging us down, you know? And this is my opportunity to do that, you know? This is a good opportunity for us to do that. Even like passively, like a woman will, like, somebody that they're acquaintances with, not even the best friends or whatever, they will like say, like, hey, you want a hug? You know, they'll ask, like, they'll do little things like that. And their goal is to lift each other up, you know? And I'm always like, why can't we do that? You know, maybe not the hug. Maybe that's still a little weird for some people. But
I definitely feel like it's just one of those things about breaking the stigma.
Yeah,
it really is. I feel like my generation, not as men, but just a generation as a whole in its entirety, is definitely good on being more open. And I see where the older generations could see that as weakness and being that we're soft and we're X, Y, and Z. But then also let's look back and how fucked up they are. And then if we really dissect their stuff, they have so much shit to say about their parents. So it's like, okay, we might be soft, but we're also a little more healthy mentally.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that I commend you, you know, for kind of figuring this out. Like this whole battle of like, you know, should I be in school? Should I do all these things? This is what they would call like a quarter life crisis, you know? So you're figuring out like a lot of the things that, and I went through it too, you know? But I remember when I was 23, I was like, fuck, man, I'm not ready for any of these life decisions, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but if I, in the grand scheme of things, I wish I would have done things that were like pushing me forward still, you know, making decisions, because it was just about me. Like, can I get a little bit of money just to be able to like blow it on the weekends or whatever it was, you know, and not thinking about like retirement and all these other things that, you know, but so to be mindful of these kind of things at a early age is a really commendable thing that, you know, I think that I would, if I gave advice to my younger self, I would say that along those lines. Is like,
I just know it's a blessing and a curse, man.
How do you feel being on the other side of the mic, pretty much?
It feels okay, but it doesn't feel good. But I also know that as being a social media personality, that's my reality, and that's okay, you know? But like my best friend was telling me before this, he's like, well, bro, like Sketch, like, are you familiar with like Sketch and Jinxie? Those are like streamers.
No.
So they're like just really popular streamers that are relevant right now.
Okay.
And they go to like different states to be on podcasts, right? So he's like, bro, like this is just part of like your journey. This is normal, you know? So it's different, but it's okay. I don't mind it.
Yeah. I'm really curious. I want to dig into what you've learned so far in the podcast. I've almost actually seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm seeing sort of the evolution of right now the podcast as it's growing into different phase, and that's kind of where I'm at too. Actually, I envisioned initially, I thought mine was going to be like more comedy based, you know, because I mean it's even a play on the words, you know, men's room, you know, the sign of like, you know, the bathroom, and then even my tagline is where relief is your duty and urinate self is welcome.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, so I was like, all right, we're just gonna like shoot the shit, literally about shit, you know, like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, it got quickly like really deep, and that's okay. This is kind of the way it was. I think that there's always opportunities to like make light of a tough situation in a lot of ways, but my default is to ruin a really heartfelt moment with the lamest jokes.
Really?
And yeah, my wife hates it. You know, she hates when I'm like, because like we could be talking about something serious, and all I hear in my mind is like a little like, you know, like little
just
dancing bears
shit
or something, you know?
Yeah. For me, I like me and him, we shoot the shit so much. Like we're funny to ourselves. I don't know if people find us funny, but me and him are fucking funny, right? So I know I'd be the opposite. I wouldn't know how to be funny on a camera or just be me or whatever. Because if me and him were just us on a camera, but we get canceled for real. Awful. We'd get canceled for real. But originally, I don't know. Are you familiar with a guy named Gabriel Ortiz? Imagine Way More. He works closely with Micah.
I heard him referring to them. Is he a videographer also?
He's a videographer, producer.
Okay.
So he's the one that what you see right now is all because of him.
Okay.
It's all because of him. I'm just the face. He's the back end. He was the producer of it. He had his team on helping me on all of that. If we're calling it shit for what it is, I was like almost I'm in the same boat as you, right? I don't fucking know. Like I'm trying to figure it out, but I'm still, and that's his respective field. So I reached out to him asking him, hey, so I want to do this. I want to do YouTube. Do you want to be my camera guy? And he's like, fuck no. He's like, I don't want to be. He's like, people have been asking me, but I don't. And I already had like.
Are you like close with him, or is he your boy, or you just kind of?
Well, I mean, now I'd say now we're relatively cool. Like I would consider him a friend, but prior to that, I just knew of him, and that was it, And because I already before the podcast, I've already had a respective following for a while.
Yeah, you're doing really well with your social media following.
Thank you, bro. But that's the thing. Like I've been, like people. That's what I wouldn't take it as a jab because people don't care about this as much as I care about it. But like people tell me like, damn, bro, you blew up out of nowhere. I'm like, bro, I've been doing this for like 5 years, 6 years. This is my 6th year doing content. So it's like, it hasn't just fucking popped out of nowhere. I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
But to the naked eye, just randomly like, damn, like now he's here, But I thought, I was like, hey, do you want to do this? He's like, no, but I can help you edit on the back end. He didn't want to be the videographer. He wanted to be the editor. So I was like, okay, cool. So then we figured that out, and he was just dropping gems on me all the time. Like I'll put you on to him after,
yeah, please,
bro.
Yeah.
Like he is somebody that you would hands down would want to have on here, especially from like a videography,
the
audio
aesthetic, right?
Yeah, thing. He would help you so much, bro. He would elevate your game so much, man. But yeah, how it's moving, where I see it, I don't know where I see it. I just want to learn, bro. I just want to learn. I want to have difficult conversations with people that would be like, I want to show my following, since it's all relatively young, that it's okay to have that it's okay to have that conversation, and he knows me that like sometimes I'm a bit of a hothead, right? I'm short-tempered, but I'm still here being vulnerable enough to talk about these conversations. Does that make me less of a man? No, it doesn't make me less of a man, because I have my feelings and I want to talk about it. Like that's okay. So where I would want it to go, I would want it to be there. I would want to, like how we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. It'd be beautiful if I could have a conversation like that with somebody on my podcast. But it's just finding someone that is on that mental wavelength, because I know I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, that I want to start doing stuff for me. Mm-hmm. I want to do this podcast for me, because originally it was for me. It's my stuff. I'm the face of this, right? But I feel like I got so caught up in tailoring to everyone else's needs that I, again, put my own needs on the back burner in some way, shape, or form in my own podcast, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I want to take the time to find someone I deem interesting and just sit down and talk with them. So that I feel like, I know that's not necessarily like a 5-year plan, but that's ideally where I would want it to go.
It's a tough balance, because I think that ideally, especially when that's a very interesting or a very relevant or helpful conversation, and you want the eyes and ears to see.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, if people just like, if I can just share this with the world, I know that they would get something out of this. And so you want to make strategic moves about that. You're like, all right, well, let me get somebody that's got a good social media following or something to that effect. But in that, maybe you lose out on a little bit of like, are they really interesting? Yeah. Do I really want to speak with this person, or am I just doing it for the clout? And that's the balance, because you're like, I want to boost the numbers a little bit, but at the same time, like I want to make sure that this is so. Yeah. I've said in my mind that like I really want to, if I'm interested in somebody, if I'm captivated by something, then I definitely want to pursue that,
Because I don't know if you and Micah touched on this, but like, I think I'm not gonna do a guest for money anymore. I don't think I am, because I've done that before, and I took the money and I did not find them interesting, and they weren't this sounds a little rude, but that's the reality. And as a social media person, they could probably take this with a grain of salt, and it would probably benefit them. But they weren't really interesting either. They didn't have a lot of to bring to the table. You know, just because they waved some money in me doesn't necessarily mean that they had a lot to offer.
Yeah.
So I've took that before, and then next thing you know, we're having a bland conversation, and it didn't.
You gotta chop it up, like, you know, like just.
that shit's so annoying, bro. So I feel like the only time I would take money now is just for sponsorships, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you say about buying into something that you believe in. But then I also know, fuck, man, like they say, money talks, bro. Money fucking talks, because I know, like, it's hard, because the reason I'm pushing so much for visuals is because I'm trying to grow my YouTube presence.
Yeah.
Because I've been closely talking to Manscaped, I've been closely talking to BetterHelp, right? But they want long form content clout. They don't want, just because I have like 40 plus K on Instagram or 500,000 plus on Snap, they don't care about that, because that's short form.
Yeah.
They want long form because their ad reads are going to be a minute to a minute and a half worth. So I understand where they're going. I'm not upset about it, but that's why I push so much for trying to grow my YouTube, because that's where they want it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's a tough balance too, especially because, I mean, you also have a Snapchat following, and Snapchat traditionally is very, very short form, you know? So that in itself is kind of like the nature of, like, my audience only likes the short form. So it's a tough balance to be like, how can I shift it? Because you're right, you know, like, I commend anybody that listens past 20 minutes or something like that, you know? Because, I mean, for me, and that's the reason why I consume audio only in a lot of ways, is because I can do that and multitask and do other things as well, you know?
Yeah.
So I listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts all the time.
Dude.
So I got a headphone in when I drive, when I do anything around the house. You know, I'm consuming, you know? So,
because I know the way I was introduced to podcasts was Joe Rogan when I graduated, and it was the Clips channel. So like it was just the 8 to 10 minute, 5 minute.
yeah, that's how I get turned on to new ones for sure, you know? But like when I get interested in something, I mean, the majority of the podcasts that I listen to are all comedy based, you know? Or like,
oh, really? Like, what do you like? What kind of stuff do you
I mean,
like?
I'm into Theo Von right now. We
love Theo Von, bro. We stay watching him.
Yeah, and then also, so there's a couple of guys out of New York comics, Mark Norman, Joe List, and Sam Morril. They do. Mark Norman's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a few times too, but they're in that same, like, you know, with Andrew Schultz and Shane Gillis and all those other comedians.
What do you feel about Sean Gillis? I mean, not Shane Gillis. Andrew Schultz. What's your thoughts on him?
I hate his haircut. First and foremost, that's a whack ass haircut that he's got.
For real, bro. He had that Hitler cut, bro. For real. That's what I got, bro.
I think some of the stuff though, he's probably really good at. He's probably one of the best at crowd work, like on the fly, like, you know, like taking something improvised.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't know enough of his work that I could say, like, you know, I'm a huge fan of him. I've just seen like clips of him. You know,
okay, because I know I was a big fan of his for a while, like during COVID, because that's when he like was starting to get bigger.
Yeah,
but he's always been a comic. But he was on. Are you familiar with the Nelk Boys or no?
Yeah.
So he was on their podcast and he ripped them up. He didn't like them and all these things. And after that, not to say because I'm a fan of them, but the way he handled it kind of pissed me off. I was like, he was upset, and I could understand why he was upset, but then from their perspective, I could understand why they were like, what the fuck, like thrown off, because he was upset that they weren't asking him like really in-depth questions. They were kind of like, oh, so you've been a comic for a while? And then it was kind of like, for him, he took it as a shot, like, well, I'm a respected comic, you're not gonna know who I am or this and that. But I feel like as a guest, and I'm victim of this as well, I like, you should do your research on before you're going on wherever you're going.
Right.
Because then you would have understood that they're just a bunch of playful young guys that are just shooting the shit on their podcast, and then they kind of have good conversation, but it's not deep, you know? So for him to like be really rude on their pod and all these things, I was like,
it's not Joe Rogan, you know, and everybody they've got their lane of like, you know, what's work. And that's the other thing that I think has been helpful for this podcast is as we're figuring it out, to be able to have a niche and to address a certain audience, you know. For me, it's kind of been that, like, you know, men of a certain age, men that don't like to talk about, mental health. And so having that as maybe the target audience, I would say, is at least gives me the opportunity to bring some stuff forward,
Because I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm totally down to have ladies as guests, though. I think that's the one thing that I'm pigeonholing in. As a matter of fact, I have in the works. I'm in discussion right now with a therapist, a friend that I know who's a female. So.
Oh, bro, I would love to watch that one.
Bro. Yeah. So.
But so fuck. I just lost my train of thought. Damn.
Microdose, man. You'll get it.
Oh, not cool. This damn. Niching. Boom.
Yeah.
Niching. So I accidentally niched it down without knowing, and it kind of pissed me off, but I'm cool with it. Because if you look up how to grow on YouTube, they tell you niche. And any person will tell you niche. But then if you are like me and I already had my following and I'm just doing this as a passion project that I want to do, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. Yeah. I don't care. Like, I don't care that that's the correct way for the algorithm to know who to plug you into. No. And I'm following Joe Rogan's like blueprint because he already had his following, right? Because he was from Fear Factor, I think it was.
He's got the MMA following. He's a comic. He had Fear Factor. Yeah. And he's a health guru. So he had all those.
Right. So he already had a decent amount of following as well. So not to say I'm anybody, because at the grand scheme I'm not, but like I was like, okay, I have a decent amount of following that want to see me. So I'm gonna just talk to whoever I want. And that is where I fucked up. Where I messed up was people were telling me, George, bro, we love what you do. We're supporting what you do, but we want to hear more about you. We want to hear more about George because that's the person that we like, that we're resonating with. Yeah. Right. And I lost sight of that. I'll be the first to say I lost sight of that because I was just trying to tailor it to everybody and worry about them. But I was like, damn, because I know when I have a guest on, I have my own insecurities, and I definitely feel like I don't want to talk too much, and I don't want to share more about me because that's like, well, they didn't fucking come here to hear about me. The whole point is for them to talk about themselves, you know? Yeah. So I was like every time I talked for more than 30 seconds in my head, I would get really like, so anyways, what about you? Like this and that, right? And I'd be like, fuck. So I know now that's why I'm saying I want to start getting people that I deem interesting, that I find I'm like, fuck, I want to share my passion about their genre or whatever they're doing to them and give them their flowers, and my viewers still get to know that, hey, George finds this interesting and George likes to learn about this. If George likes it, maybe I might like it. Let me watch this.
Right. And there's it also helps the conversation because when you're genuinely interested in something, you have a lot of connection points too, So you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this. I did that. That reminds me of myself, Yeah. But to be quite honest, I think that I proactively reached out to you, and I think there's a tremendous value in podcast collaborations because it kind of gives us the opportunity to do that. I really like the opportunity for you to hopefully this drives somebody to the some of your audience to be able to see like, hey, this is about George this time, Yeah. And so I really want to highlight you. I want to talk about you, what makes you a unique person. We're all unique individuals and stuff, and so I want to get to the heart of that.
Thank you, man. I know for me that's fucking nerve-wracking because
it is in a lot of ways.
I was talking to it was on. What a podcast was it? It was, I think it was Above the Bridge. That's what we were talking about on one of my guests. And I was talking to him about imposter syndrome. Oh, yeah. And he was telling me that he doesn't have it at all because he's like, I know what work I've put in, and I know I've put the 1,000 hours into this shit, and no one can take that away from me. So I know that this is why I feel like I'm this person, which is an awesome way, like ideology to adopt. But I just know I'm not there. Not to say that I'm not, I haven't put in the work. I just know that this was all for fun. Like it happened for fun, man. Like I was just vlogging in a fucking parking lot, and people resonated with it. They thought it was funny, and then the 500 went to 1,000 because originally it was just the people I had from high school, and then the people I had from high school went and shared it to their friends, and then I started throwing a lot of parties, and then next thing you know, 100, 1,000. 5,000, 10,000. It just started growing, and I just never really thought about it. until like 2021. I was like, hey guys, I have following, like go subscribe, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So that's where my original imposter syndrome came from, of just like, I'm like, I don't deserve this. I'm just some guy from Los Banos, California, you know, because I know what pissed me off. I went to Newman one time, right? I went to Newman and I seen some girl that was like an influencer. Like, I don't identify as an influencer. That was another reason I started a podcast. Because when I think of influencers, I think of like those TikTok fucking people, and that's not me. That's not me, right? So I feel like, okay, if I say I'm a podcast host, that holds a little bit more weight.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, you're interesting. You don't dance and shit.
Yeah,
really.
right. So I know that for me, I was like, okay, I'm a podcast host. This sounds like I know what the fuck I'm doing, right? So that's why I originally started this, but here we are now, and I've had people reach out to me to be on their shows, but like it just didn't really resonate with me, and I was nervous as fuck already, and I was like, well, because I know, like, bro, it's already been over an hour.
Easy. Yeah.
I know for me, you probably think of this differently, but for me, I don't feel like there's much for someone else to ask about me. Like, for me personally, that's how I felt. I'm like, what the fuck? What are you gonna ask me about for 30 minutes plus? You know, so that's where a lot of my insecurities stem from, and I'm open about it. I'm not gonna lie about it, even though I am confident. I am human, you know. So
yeah, and I feel the same exact way. You know, maybe I hide behind the opportunity to, like, you know, this isn't about me. You know, I'm talking about you. You know, so maybe I hide it behind it, but. I actually was recently on a podcast that's going to be released pretty soon here. Shout out to Omar from Tattooing Out Loud.
Shout out Omar.
But yeah, put me in the same vulnerability. Like, you know, I did a solo pod simply because I took this big long gap when I had my heart attack, you know? And so basically that gave me the opportunity to like update health, you know? It's been an interesting journey because I'm not good with social media. I don't think I put myself in a good place to have a good followership there, but I've got a lot of support from like people that you know, my wife was just telling me, like, she's like, hey, my nephew reached out to me. He says he likes your podcast. I was like, how did he find me? She's like, oh, you know, like, so they're not even on my social media in a lot of ways. And I get a lot of like word of mouth. I did some like guerrilla marketing and stuff too. You know, I have like a bunch of stickers. I gave you a couple of stickers right there too, but, you know, doing little things like that where I'll see a follower pop up here and there and stuff too. But mainly, I said a good portion of the audience that I have is audio only. And so that was kind of why, like, I always had a YouTube page, but like you'll see like the first 6 or 7 episodes, it's just an image. It's just the audio, you know, the opportunity, because I wanted to like spread it as far as I could, you know, from a perspective of like audience listenership. But most of my audience is coming from Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So that's been really helpful for me to like grow a little bit more. My numbers are substantially larger there than they are in my Instagram followers. Yeah.
And that's crazy because I'm the opposite. Like, if you look at me for face value, I have a lot of following on all those platforms. But then if you go to my YouTube, it's not popping because I don't really focus on YouTube. That's the long form.
Right.
Go watch it. Fuck it.
And it's hard because I'm the same way. I don't put so much emphasis on Instagram because I'm like, no, it's audio only. Like mine is long form, you know? And like my dad listens to it, people from his work and stuff like that too.
That's
so it's
cool,
like,
bro. That's dope as hell though. But I feel like that definitely shows like the different, like the generational gap.
Yeah.
Like not in like a shot way or nothing. Like, I just feel like that's definitely, when people ask me, oh, where can I find it? Is it on Apple, Spotify? I'm like, no, bro. Like it's on Instagram, it's on YouTube. Like, because I know for me, I'm an iPad kid. I'm not gonna fake the funk. I'm an iPad kid. When I'm sitting down to watch some food, when I'm sitting down, I'll put on a pod or I'll put something. So for me, when someone tells me that they can't watch it because it's not on audio, it's not in audio form, I'm like, okay, so you want it in audio so you can listen to it on your way to work, right? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, so then why can't you just put it on YouTube on your phone while you're driving to work? That's my outlook on it. And they're like, well, I want to just have it there. And I'm like, see, shit's self-collapsing. If you wanted to watch my shit, you could just throw it up. You don't have to watch it, but the audio will still be there.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah, technically, I mean, you can make that happen for any visual. What I like though is that Spotify now gives you both options, you know, so you can watch a video like Joe Rogan's podcast, you know,
it's on video on Spotify?
On Spotify's video, yeah. So
I didn't know.
And the same thing from all my episodes that I've released, there's video on there too. So you just upload the MP4 file, and it will automatically segment it. So it's dope, man. It's really good.
Man, you got to put me on to that. I did not know that. That's
I'll show you afterwards how that goes. But yeah, so it's the best of both worlds for me.
Yeah.
Because you know I can't to that extent too. I can't expect that the way I consume podcasts to be the same way everybody else does. And so that's why I even have it like I'll go on Google Play. I've never even used Google Play myself, you know? So I'm like, but hey, maybe somebody does, you know?
Yeah.
And it helps boost the numbers, you know? Sometimes I get like some weird, it's, you know, primarily US, but like sometimes I get like Austria or some like weird ass country or something, you know?
Hey, your audience is out there somewhere, bro. It's just
But
about
you know,
finding
I use hashtags and I try the best way that I could, you know, to grow the audience. But I think again, the main thing for me is like, I think this is an interesting opportunity for someone to maybe get something out of this. And if it just gives the opportunity for somebody to have a dialogue, even their own dialogue, like honestly, even if they're hating on it, it gives them a sense like, what is this shit? You know, like then it still gives them the opportunity to talk about that. You know, maybe they're like, yeah, we as men, we do talk about mental health. What is this guy talking about? He's lying or whatever it is, you know? And so be it, you know, so be it. Maybe it's an opportunity for somebody just to learn something new, do something like that too.
I agree. Like I know, I'm also not going to lie to you too, is that I'd be lying if I said I had a lot of hate. I don't. I'm blessed to the fact that I've just been unapologetically me, and people have happened to resonate with that.
Yeah.
But I know for the only like hate comment I would ever get is that my Snapchats were too long. Like my thing was basically like a YouTube video. Like it would be like 5 minutes worth, and it'd be like just people would just tell me, I don't know if you're even on, are you on Snapchat?
I used to be not anymore,
yeah. So like people would just be like, fuck, like this shit's so long. And then my retort to that would be, I was like, okay, but you fucking watched it though. Yeah. Like love me or hate me, you're still gonna watch me.
Yeah.
Right. Like
it's still counted as a view.
Right. It's still counted as a view. And I feel like as a creator, you kind of have to be a little bit like, I wouldn't say ignorant, but you would have to like have that little self-confidence in yourself. Like, okay, fuck it. If you don't like it, there's the unsubscribe button.
Yeah.
No one told you to watch me, but you're still watching me.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's really winning here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even if it's like a train wreck, you know, like you can't turn away from it, you know? And so that's the beautiful thing about like, yeah, I mean, I think I'm not popular enough to even have haters, you know, so but maybe one day, you know.
Now, bro, you'd be surprised, bro. Like you could be at like 100 or like 300 or whatever. Cause I never looked at following as any sort of relevance. Cause I've met some people that have like had over 100K and then they're the most bland person you've ever met, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not like, cause I have a lot of friends and stuff in LA, right? And I just meet people out there and they're just so like bland. They don't offer any sort of substance, but I guess one could argue substance is subjective. What right. do I deem as like something of substance? But yeah, they're just so like transparent. I'm just like, okay, you do TikTok, you do this, you do that. It's like,
have you ever seen? There's a super popular YouTube channel. It's like Mama Rosa or something like that. But basically, she's just like this older Mexican lady that just makes tortillas, and she's got like millions of views, and it's like just like a regular straight up like, you know, like a tia or somebody that you would have like it's nothing interesting. She's not really well spoken, but she just makes like really good home cooked meals.
Yeah.
And she's got like
and she has a podcast.
No, it's just like, it's just
videos.
Like a vlog. Yeah. Just videos.
Oh,
it's like
yeah. I've seen those
channel
on TikTok. I've seen those on TikTok where it's like just somebody's mom.
Yeah.
That's just fun.
And then it's like millions of views. And I'm like, man, like, so, but like, you know, seemingly like, man, if I would just recorded my grandma this entire time, I could have
I could have got famous. Yeah. You know what's funny, bro? I feel like the reason, because I've talked about that specific genre of things to people, and I feel like it just brings a sense of home to them. Like,
yeah,
that's why it's like, damn, like I haven't seen I haven't seen my grandma do this since I was little. Like maybe their grandma passed or their mom was doing it when they were younger, and then that just and especially in like the Latino community, that's like a sense of like comfort and stuff like that.
Yeah, I also think that there's something that you mentioned that a lot of people, there's so much with the social media movement. There's so many fake people out there. Is that when you come across somebody that's authentic and just being themselves, like it's a breath of fresh air, you know? And so that's why like you being your unapologetic self is a really good thing for some people. Are just like, thank you. This guy's just, being himself, and not trying to sugarcoat.
You would think.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think it's more often than not because everybody is just like influencers are like, we kind of know that influencers are fake people, they got to put on a persona and stuff. And there's always an element of that. Like you act a certain way with a certain person, like I'm not going to speak to my grandma the same way that I'm going to speak to, a friend. And so you put on your audience basically,
Yeah, I'd be the first one to say though, like, I would definitely like to talk to you about that, bro. Like about like the whole persona thing, because that was another reason that has thrown my mental health down the drain, man. Like even in high school, I was like predominantly like known or whatever the hell you want to like call it, whatever.
Can I ask you something about
Sure, go ahead.
Something that I struggle with? Maybe it's the same for you. So my name is Ismael. That's a very Hispanic name that in corporate America, I've worked in software and technology for the past 12 years. Working with a lot of American people, they can't say Ismael. And so,
Well, you're saying it with an accent, Ismael.
That's my name. That's how I pronounce it.
Like if at face value, wouldn't it be Ishmael?
That's right.
Right.
So that's the English equivalent to it,
Okay.
So it's the same thing like Miguel, Michael, Roberto, Robert, Jorge, George,
Yeah.
But for me, that was always something that was kind of a little bit insecure about,
Okay.
My parents are always like, you have such a beautiful name, Ismael
Yeah.
Angel, like it rolled off the tongue, I'm like, but people can't pronounce it. So it was butchered in my entire life, Ismael, and so when they read it on paper, they can't read it the way it's supposed to be said. So I just, I went by Ishmael, and even people can't say that. So it's just Ish now. So that's why it's very easy for me. And granted, it's the English version of my name.
I thought you were like that makes a lot more sense now because I thought you were like Middle Eastern or something.
Right.
Ish. Like,
yeah.
That sounds...
I have a joke about that because like it's a it's a somebody American appropriating an Arabic name, or whatever too. But
yeah. Okay. So
has that ever been an issue with you?
When I was little, it was like it would be like Jorge or like George of the Jungle or all that bullshit, right? I definitely don't like my name. That's my dad's name. No shot to my dad, but like that was like the like machismo. Like my first son is gonna have my name.
Yeah.
So I always tell this fool I had to make my name cool. Like I had to make my name carry weight. Like mine, or else it would have just been there's George or there's Jorge. Like if you say George a couple times, it doesn't sound cool. George. It doesn't sound that cool, But what's a cool name, right? I mean, that's anyone could have a different opinion on that. But I know for me, I agree. I didn't like my name. I'm not really insecure about my name, because I know when I walk in a room, people are like, "Fuck, there's George," So now my name carries weight, But I never really, maybe when I was little, but my name has never really been a thing to me.
And I've always had nicknames. People have called me. That's why Ish, because it's just like the shortened version of my name. And people would call me even growing up. This is for the OGs, but everybody knows me as Chito.
Chivo?
Chito.
Oh, Chito?
Yeah.
Chito?
So like Cheeto, like chip,
Okay.
so. But that was just like a childhood nickname. So anybody that knew me growing up, they know me as that. So when they tell me like, your real name's Ish, they're like, they don't even know that.
Oh shit! I know for me in junior high, I tried, but it didn't stick. When you first go into school,
you try to create a persona, or like you try to create yourself.
I tried. Like first day of school, they're like, "Oh, what's your name, or what is a name that you want to be referred to as?" So my middle name's Christopher, so I'd be like, "Call me Chris. Call me Chris. My name's Chris." That shit didn't stick.
Yeah, you always have that one friend like, "Shut the fuck up. That's not
him.
Name.
That's him, bro." Both of us, we be calling each other out on our own shit. It's just like, shut the fuck up.
That's not your name,
No, but yeah, I try to get that. I try to get my name as Chris, but it didn't. It didn't stick.
You know, it has been a point of insecurity with me, but like, you know, in retrospect, so I a few years back, I was working for a company that was, it was a software company. They were based in Spain. So I had the opportunity to do some traveling and stuff to Spain. And it was really refreshing that everybody called me Ismael because it's a Spanish name. So they read it and they're like, "Oh, you've got a great name," you know? I was like, I never get this in the US, you know? Like I it's always been like, it's been a struggle for people to pronounce my name, you know? And so now
do you make them make it? Do you correct them and make them say it right?
Yes and no. So I will say I know my audience a little bit, you know, and so I know in a couple percent. I also have always worked like customer facing, so I work with people that don't even work for me or with me, and so I have that accommodation, you know, of that. So in most settings, I introduce myself as Ishmael. If I'm introducing myself for the first time, I introduce myself as Ishmael, which is just the English version of my name, you know.
Yeah. Does it bother you to just say that though, like Ishmael, or because I know for me, like I would never want to feel like I'm disrespecting anybody's name, you know. So I would love to call you by your normal name, like how it's pronounced. But I know that I'm like a no sabo where I speak enough Spanish to where like you can tell I speak Spanish, but then if you speak to me,
you can pronounce things properly, but
but I'm not good enough to where I can speak it, and that's what pisses me off. Where if I'm talking in Spanish, it might sound like I know what I'm talking about. So then you start thinking I speak Spanish, and I'm like, fuck, slow down.
Come again?
Yeah. So for you, like, I would love to call you by your name. I don't even. I would feel like I would butcher.
It's like if you pronounce
Ismael?
Yeah, Ismael. Yeah,
Ismael. Am I saying it right? Ismael.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, then fuck it. I guess I was overanalyzing it.
Most people can't say it. Michael, can you say that?
Ismael.
Close enough.
He tried to throw in the accent in there. Ismael. Sorry, man, and to interrupt what we were
all good.
our flow.
You know, that's another thing that kind of talking about that. You know, sometimes you take life for granted a little bit. You know, and I realize that, like, you know, I've got a full-time job. And for me, thinking about like, oh man, I want to be a career podcaster. That would be cool, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a really good situation, you know. I lead a team. I'm a manager of a team. We work for a lighting design company, and I can't. The grass is not always greener on the other side, you know. I've got my wife. You know, she's a full-time career woman and a full-time mom. And I got two boys, and when I sit back and look at everything I have, it's a blessing, you know. I'm in a really good place in my life where I don't want to take this kind of thing for granted, you know. And that's why I always say like
your family, or take what for granted, like
life,
the pot, or
life, you
or
know,
just in general. Okay.
Yeah, you know, when I had my heart attack, it gave me an opportunity to like pause and reset and like reevaluate where I'm at, you know.
Yeah.
And to count my blessings, honestly, you know, to see like where I'm at, like beautiful home. We work hard for a lot of this stuff, you know. I came from very, very like poor family, you know, like no lie. Like,
are you from the area, or where are you from?
I grew up in a small town called Biola. So it's just west of Fresno. It's in the cuts. It's like in the sticks, you know.
Got it.
And we grew up in this little shack of a house. And there was 6 of us total, 4 kids, 2 parents. It was 1 bedroom. So we all had to like cram in there, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a shack. It was like barely, like, no lie. When we moved out of there, it like they demolished it because it was like unstable for people to live in, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's crazy to think that like we lived in there. And then so like I looked at the specs afterwards. It was like 600 square feet. This is a little small spot, you know? When I was a kid though, I was like, man, this is a huge house. I can run from the front to the back and it takes forever, you know? And I was like, the yard is huge, but like I've gone back to see the lot where it's at, and it's just a little sliver between. It's basically an alley, you know.
Oh damn.
And but so like looking back at that and seeing where, you know, again, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication to like to be in a place, and you know, like life choices. Waiting to have kids was a good thing for us, you know, like waiting till we're financially stable. We also, like, me and my wife got a chance to like do some traveling, you know, purchase a house before the kids came around, you know.
Mm-hmm. So you don't regret it or nothing?
No, man, I don't have any regrets, you know, in retrospect, even everything, like, you know, like putting college on the back burner, doing all this other stuff, you know, like not caring about anything but myself when I was in my early 20s, you know. Looking back at that, I fumbled through life in a lot of ways, but I got to a place where like I figured it out. It's just like the podcast, you know, like figuring it out along the way, you know?
Yeah. Since you got such a good job, if this takes off, would you not want to leave it? Are you content?
It's got to be really lucrative, you know, to make it worth it, you know?
Yeah.
But this is a very big passion project for me, you know? So I'm, like I said, if I hit to a point where it's not, fulfilling for me, then I'll have met my capacity, you know? And so, whenever that comes around, if it ever comes around, then I know how to bow out of this, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely do feel like I feel like it was Deion Sanders or one of those. It was like a football athlete, but there's like people say I'm lucky, but the harder I work, the more luck I had, right? So I feel like definitely with this,
that's a good quote.
You know, definitely I feel like with this, the more work we put in, the faster we will see whatever we want, whether it's a higher viewer count, higher listener count, higher money, sponsorships, whatever, you know. Especially with this, it's like you need to put in the fucking work, you know. And for me to you, I mean, obviously, if it was up to me, I would switch roles any day. Like, I'd rather have a nice job and then have this on the side, like how you do. And then if it goes somewhere, you know. But for me, like I said, I'm 20. I started this at 22 and I'm 23 now. It's like, this better work or what the fuck? I'm not getting any younger. I don't want to career change at 28. And people could say, oh, well, like J.K. Rowling made Harry Potter X, Y. Okay, but let's talk about J.K. Rowling's life from 20 to 43 when she made it. It's like, yeah, I get it that maybe there's out there somewhere, but that's not the reality. The reality is right now. The reality is I'm not okay. I'm not financially okay. So like this has to fucking work.
Yeah.
Or what? Because I know I battle so much with dropping it all, saying screw the content, just going to the union. You know, my dad's an iron worker. My dad's a welder. And my dad always...
My dad was too, yeah.
Was he?
My first job was at an iron shop, actually.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my dad always taught me, and now I have a sense of resentment towards welding, but it was like, my dad told me, you know what, mijo, you don't have to do what I want to do, but at least I'm going to give you the tools, so if you have to and shit hits the fan, at least you can. So some people wish they were at what I was in welding. I'm a really good welder, but I hate welding. Every summer, I want to go play. No, go weld, go do this. My dad had a business on the side, so I'd be out in the cut welding rancher fucking gates and stuff, right? So I have this sense of resentment towards that, even though I'm good at it. You know, when there's other kids that are going to school right now, they're like, hey, bro, I'm a welder right now. And I'm like, hey, man, that's awesome. And they're like, you know what welding is? I'm like, all too well, you know? Yeah. So I know for me,
I'm a better welder than you.
Bro, I'm the definition of it's like, you know, where they want like 10 years experience. Bro, I got the 15 years experience, you know? But yeah, that's why I feel like I definitely struggle. I struggle with it because I'm like, fuck, this has to work, you know?
I think that's just okay. Like it's okay to feel uncomfortable with where you're at in life. Number one, it's motivating. Number one, it puts us in a place that, like, you know, maybe the fire needs to be lit in front of you to get to a place where you feel like it gives you the opportunity to really like put your time and dedication into something, you know. And if at the very least, I always think that like the lesson in life, the reason why I have no regrets is because there was always a lesson out of this. Everything that I've done in my life, even when it was a fuck up, when it was a bad situation, it was an opportunity for me to learn and grow from, you know. If I stayed stuck in those places forever, then I would probably have some regrets, you know.
That makes sense.
And but like, so every opportunity to like learn from and grow, like I always think that like in the grand scheme of things, if this podcast things, it doesn't ever pan out for me, it gives me, number one, the opportunity. And there's a reason why I say like, I'm just using this as a chance to like have interesting conversations with interesting folks, because that will be really, really beneficial for me to even like when I look back at things and like re-listen to episodes of them, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really good conversation, or like, man, that was a solid, you know, flow of things, and it was natural, whatever it was.
That's dope though, because I know I hate I've been like I said I've been doing content for so long that I am used to hearing my voice, but I can't stand my voice. I don't really watch. I think besides the Dante Pellegrino Above the Bridge pod, I don't watch any of my old pods. I don't like. I hear my voice so much. It's not even like I'm cringing at my voice. I'm just like I'm like shut the fuck up.
I get that, especially when you like have to listen back for editing and stuff like that.
Like
you know?
well, like this podcast is going relatively well, and it's at half an hour, and you're gonna continue to pause, cut. This hour and a half is going to turn into 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
At the very end, you know.
Yeah.
But something I was curious, I wanted to ask you too was like, you know how you're saying like if it doesn't pan out, besides knocking out the episodes, right? You have done the pod. Do you feel like you actually have put in the work to where it deserves to get there?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. It's subjective. I think that, you know, everybody would say like, you know, I hustle, I put in my time, I did this, X and that. But like, what does that mean? You know, how many hours in a day did you put into it? How many, like, how did you strategically think of that? I think there could be more, honestly, you know, but if I looked at the reason why I haven't put the time and the efforts into the podcast, it's because I sit down and watch a Netflix movie with my wife. I wrestle with my boys. I go swimming. That's worth more than me.
Yeah, that when you put it like that, I mean that makes sense. You know, yeah. I know. I wrestle with that question. That's the only reason I was asking. You know, because I know I haven't, and I'll be the first to say I haven't. You know, and sometimes I look at it's like, okay, well, just because you have over 40,000 people on watching, how am I really getting paid that well off of this? No, I mean, yeah, I make maybe a couple thousand here and there, but it's like, it's not enough for me to say, fuck my work, you know, like this weekend, I'm going to go back to work, you know, I'm going to go bus tables. I work at a restaurant, right? It's like, but I'm also not mad at anybody about myself. Cause I know, I mean, well, motherfucker, you haven't done the work, you know? And I could say, well, my views aren't up or this or that or aren't up. But it's like, okay, that's why I wrestle with a lot, because a lot of the times I know the answer to my own problems, you know, and I feel like a lot of us just turn the cheek, you know.
That's a really good quality to have, though. I mean, it's self-awareness, and also like, but if you take a step outside of yourself and you look at the grand scheme of things, like, what is this all for? Like, yeah, we can like hustle. If it's just for the money, then there's a bunch of other ways you can make money doing this. You know, you can probably you're at the followership right now where you can. So there's a page that I stopped following. Okay, no shade. I don't want to get too deep in that too, but it's a page called Fresno Uncensored, and there's a bunch of uncensored pages.
Okay.
And they have really good content that basically they take from other people that like record videos around town. And there's just like,
they just repost it, or
yeah, they repost it. They give credit to where credit's due, but it's like a meme page pretty much, you know, like,
okay.
But like it's stuff that happens in Fresno, like, you know, car accidents or people acting a fool, you know, homeless. Like,
so it's kind of like 209 Times. Have you heard
yeah, exactly. Every like area has their own like, you know, version of that.
Yeah.
But they've got like a good, like, I think they're 50,000 plus followers, and they're like all about the monetization now. You know, it's like every week they're always like, you know, hey, you know, $30 spots, you know, for stories and all this stuff. You know, one thing that I appreciate about you is that like you're very supportive of like the homies and other people that you've connected with. So
thank you, man.
That's a really good opportunity for people to. I think you've even shared some of our stories. You know,
yeah, man. I try.
So like even that, man, like you're using your voice for good, you know? And I think there's a tremendous value, maybe not monetary value in all these things, but like a self-worth value. That comes
it is, man. And what you just told me is why I do what I do, you know? Because I'm going to be the first to say, although I don't have a lot of haters, I don't have a lot of diehard supporters. I don't. Like, people, it takes 30 seconds to shoot a follow, right? Doesn't mean that they're my fan, you know? I feel like maybe I'd say like 20K. I'd say I have like at least 20,000 fucking fans, right? And
they will listen and watch.
Yeah, and care about what I'm talking about, right? And of course, that someone would be like 20,000 people. That's a lot of people, right? But then, okay, well, I have over 400, 500,000 sometimes on Snapchat watching me. I have 300,000 on a slow week, you know. So it's like that's such a small substrata of people, you know. And even in my hometown, people give me flowers, but unless I ask, it takes a lot sometimes for someone to reshare my post, you know. And I tell people all the time, like, it takes nothing for me to go on my phone and share issues real. It takes nothing for me to drop a fire emoji or anything, but that to you means a lot to you, you know. And I know what it's like. I know what it's like to spend an hour on something and no one gives a shit about it, you know. And it meant the world to me. It meant the world to me. I sat at my fucking computer, cut, edit, put the caption. Oh, this shit is heat. No one give a fuck, you know. And then that hurts, you know, that like, this is your passion. You love this, you know. And I just know what it's like for no one to resonate with that, you know. So that's why you always see me constantly posting. Yeah, maybe they may not always post it. Like, they may not repost my stuff, but it's not for me. It's for them. I'm doing it for them, you know. So that's why I feel like I do it at.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the basis of why I think it's important for podcasters to have, you know, to connect and collaborate, especially in the Central Valley. You know, like we're the black sheep of California, you know, and it's so all the more reason to support each other, and also, like, we know the work that goes into this behind the scenes, you know, and so to put us in a place that where, you know, we understand that, like, that one reel, like, fuck, man, that took like hours of worth of work or whatever it took at that point, and most people they see it as the content and like, oh, cool, you know, that's 15 seconds, that's 30 seconds of material, you know, that didn't take anything for you, but you know, so I number one, I definitely appreciate you sharing your story, man. Like, you know, I really want to I want to be mindful of your time. You know, you've been super gracious to come out here, share your story.
Thank you, man. And you're good, man. I'm staying out here in Fresno, so whenever you wanna, if there's anything else you wanna talk about, I'm good. But
yeah, I want to give you the opportunity to, you know, the eyes and ears, you know, from our humble followership, you know, just to be able to talk about anything that you have. If there's any projects specifically, I'm going to plug all your socials. But like, if there's anything that you want to promote or anything like that you have in the works or you have going on that you are particularly proud of, tell the folks about it.
I feel like honestly, I feel just everything I've done. You know, there's not something in particular that I want you to watch. If you're watching this as a viewer, I want you to watch everything. You know, because like if you're here till the very end, you've known it that podcast, that reel meant something to somebody, you know. So watch a podcast, just go random, say fuck it, you know, just click on some random pod. If you want to know my personal favorite pod, my favorite pod was the Dante Pellegrino pod of Above the Bridge. That was hands down one of my favorites, because that person was the person that got me into podcasting and made me have the confidence to do this, besides Joe Rogan, you know. But other than that, man, I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful for anyone to click a link, shoot a follow, drop a comment, you know, anything. I'm grateful for it all.
There you have it. Listen to Joe Rogan, everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
Right? Bro, oh my God. Hey, really fast. You know, something I wanted to touch with you. Yeah. You and Mike are one of the few people that I've noticed that are repping the 209 or like the you're free Fresno
559, but yeah.
I didn't really give a shit about it. Like I didn't know that like wearing where you from on your back actually meant something, because I was so big on like my own following that I just looked and I was like, I'm looking here, right? And then I look in LB and 209's all right here. Like Micah, I appreciate about Micah is that he's like shining a light on Merced, on that or that.
He blatantly calls that out, you know, on his podcast, Central Valley, you know, like, so.
Yeah.
But one of those things that, like, yeah, I completely agree. Everybody, including myself, like I left the Central Valley because, you know, I went through that phase of like, you know, I got to get out of here, you know, like I got to leave this area. I'm a big fish in a small pond kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
But there's such a value in rooting for the underdog, you know. I feel like we're an underdog city. I have jokingly said that we're the black sheep of California,
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways we are, you know, like we're forgotten. Like the Central Valley is full of like, I mean, we've got millions of people that live, you know, from Bakersfield all the way up to, you know, Northern California. Some will argue that Sacramento is the Central Valley or not.
I would consider that the Bay. I would consider that. Yeah, no, like I remember, because I know Micah said that before. I didn't know that people even considered Sacramento as the Central Valley. I think of that as the Bay.
The way I think that we all connect is like if we get 105 plus degrees in the summer, we're all Central Valley, you know?
Right?
And Sacramento gets hot. I lived in Sacramento for like a year and a half. So
did you?
Yeah.
I've only been there once, but the only reason I don't rep the 209 and like feel like we're the black sheep is because I never felt that way, right? And that's that. But I also feel like because you and Mike are closer in age to each other than me and Micah are, but we're in the realm of social media. My stuff, when I go on analytics, millions of just random people are watching my stuff, right? It's not just specifically the 209 area, you know?
Yeah.
So I've never felt like, damn, like I'm wearing 209 on my back. You don't know where I'm from. People don't really care where I'm from. They care about me,
Yeah.
you know? So when I go to LA and I'm talking about where I'm from, that's like a 30-second to a minute convo of the conversation that we're having. When I'm talking to producers over there, hey, where you from again? I'm from Los Banos, bro. Oh shit, where's that? I'm like, that's like going towards Bakersfield, like going like on your way to Fresno, and they're like, oh shit, that's cool. So anyways, yeah, bro, I fuck with your shit, and then we just keep going. Like it's never really been that big of a deal to me.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, I'd be the first to say I would like, I guess I feel with all my guests that I've had, I've had a new appreciation for Los Banos, that there is talented people in here, because I've always wanted to move to LA.
Yeah.
That was my personal thing as of right now. I've always wanted to move to LA for content, right? Yeah. But then I was like, I never wanted, because I know how people are, I never wanted to move and then be like, damn, he's a sellout. He never cared about his community when there was a lot of people. So I was like, because my parents always taught me, be 3 steps ahead of everybody in an argument. So if I'm gonna say something to you, make sure I have the argument to what you're gonna tell me. Which again, I'm assuming I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna tell me, but then have a retort to that. And if they say, and just go like that, right? So no one's ever told me that, but I just never want that to be.
So, I read a book that changed my life. That it's called David and Goliath. It's by Malcolm Gladwell. He's the same guy. So that concept of like the 10,000 hours, that was coined by this guy Malcolm Gladwell. It's a book called The Tipping Point, and basically, like, you know, anybody that commits 10,000 hours to anything is an expert. You know, he's the same author that wrote this book. But the story of David and Goliath has historically been the little man versus the giant. But he breaks down this book that talks about the principles of like David. And he actually like broke it down. Says like David was the actual one with the advantage in this situation, because he was the expert slingshot man. Like he has like all these experts. He's like, he did this defeated. It was on his home turf, and he's like, if you look at things, he was at an advantage, you know. But he used a seemingly tough situation to put himself in an advantage. And so he breaks down a bunch of like stories of other individuals that they seem like they're at a disadvantage in a lot of situations, but they use that to their advantage. So like people with dyslexia, people with like disorders, they put the extra time into learning something, and it actually put them at an advantage to their competition. You know.
I know. For me, I didn't really share this, but I have really, really advanced ADHD.
Okay.
And I feel like since I graduated is when I slowly started addressing it. Because when I was in first grade, or kindergarten, I was really smart and I would finish my work, but then I would pose a distraction to others. I finished the work and I'd just be like tapping my pencil or being like, what are you guys doing? And then they were like, there's something off with him, you know? And then coming from a Latino household, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. He's fine. My boy's fine. And they wanted me to like skip a grade or two, you know, but in order to do that, they had to put like a STAR program where it was like other kids that were really smart, you know, but they're all in a program. But the way my parents viewed that was as like the fucking special ed class. But it wasn't that. It was an advanced program, right?
To be challenged. You know?
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, so to be challenged, like, okay, he get it. He knows his ABCs. This is stupid for him. We don't need to show him ABCs. We need to show him algebra or whatever. So then that was my issue. But then my mom was like, no, there's not, leave him alone. And then they were like, well, let's assess him with a child psychologist, figure it out, and then go from there. No, okay, fine. And then my mom was being very difficult. So then it was, okay, fine. There's nothing wrong with your kid. Then he's just a badass kid. He's just being disruptive. So then for the duration of my schooling, that was the stigma, right? And going forward, I didn't even address it till I was like my junior, senior year. I took psychology and sociology in high school, and then that's where I figured out that I enjoyed it. So then my teacher, like the second semester, and she pulled me aside and she's like, George, can I talk to you for a second? I was like, what's up? And she's like, have anyone ever asked you are you diagnosed with like ADHD or any learning disability? I was like, fuck. That's like bringing back like trauma.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, yeah. I explained to her the whole tangent. She's like, okay. She's like, because she was a licensed therapist or a psychologist prior to becoming a teacher.
Right.
So she's like, I can't legally diagnose you, but I believe you have ADHD. I was like, all right, fuck it, I guess. Whatever. Like, what am I supposed to do with that at 16? So then the third trimester comes around. We take a pay. We had to put like $10 in, but then the school paid for the rest of an actual IQ test, right? And then my thing came out to like, I think it was 131 or 132, and that's relatively high for the average person.
Yeah. Is it Mensa like 140 or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mensa is like the genius level or whatever. You know?
Yeah. And I was like, oh shit. And then she's like, see, because I told her the whole thing and the things that I struggle with, and she's like, yeah, it's not that you're disruptive. It's not that you don't like the schoolwork or you can't do it or you're being lazy. It's just like you're physically not wired that way, you know? And then here I am now. I feel like it's progressively getting worse as I'm becoming my own adult and a man, that I'm trying to figure out ways to like, cope with it. Because literally just last week I paid and I took another one because besides college I wasn't diagnosed, but I was like, I just want to see, let me just figure it out. I took like 100 questionnaire and it's asking me, and I met with somebody, and then it said like advanced. It said you had advanced ADHD, and then it like the average is like 9.5, I think it was, and now I scored like a 19. Like I was pretty fucked up. I was pretty fucked up. I'm not gonna lie, and I was like, fuck, man. And then it was talking about like the struggles that you deal with, like financial problems or like relationship problems, and like terms of communication, and that's something I deal with a lot. Like even with finances, I was talking about this last night, that like impulsive spending. Like I just want to get something out. I don't care what I want to buy, but I want to buy something and I want to get it like.
Yeah, if you grew up anything close to what I grew up, it's a tough place to be in, because that's the mark of it. Maybe it's a cultural thing too, because that's almost the mark of success. You know, like growing up, like seeing black and brown people when they have the things to spend on, the jewelry, the houses, the cars, that's the mark of success. Whereas like a lot of people that like grew up with stability and like generational wealth, they know that like investments and all these other things are the things that like you should be doing. But it's hard to shake out of that, like if that's all you knew, you know? Me growing up a poor person, I always felt like, well, the shit's gonna hit the fan. I'm gonna lose all of this at some point. I gotta spend it while I have it.
Yeah. That's what my dad said. That's what my dad believed in. He would always like, my dad didn't believe in bank accounts, so he would have like it either under a mattress or in his toolbox or in the house or some shit. Because I know like another thing that I struggle with even now that I work with every day with is getting overstimulated and getting overwhelmed. Like with a pod, right? I'll be working on a pod. I get a FaceTime, answer the FaceTime. Oh shit, wait, I need to go do this. I need to go do that. And then next thing you know, I'm getting pissed off and I'm getting triggered. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, nah, this is too much. And then I just shut down on everybody. And before I thought that was just short-temperedness, but then I was like, wait, no, like, I have some, there's something wrong with me, and that's okay. There's something wrong with me, but let's address it because this isn't getting any better, you know? And now I'm trying to figure out, because like just up until recently, I've been taking like these multivitamin pills that has like sea moss, ashwagandha, like all these different things in it. And I don't think I told him. I think I told him a little bit about it, but it's working a little too well. It's working like way too well. Not too well, like it's a problem, but I'm really hypersensitive to medication because I don't take pills. My mom always believed like, you don't need medicine. I'm not gonna give you pills.
Yeah.
You're not gonna go get shots. You know?
Holistic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just never took anything. So like even like another thing that kind of started this journey was when I went to college. My psych professor said the same thing. He was like, "You have ADHD?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Want to see something crazy?" I was like, "Wait, like you like coffee?" I was like, "I mean, kind of. And I don't really drink it." He's like, "Go to the cafeteria and get black coffee." And then he was like, "I promise you, you're gonna get tired, or like you might feel different." So this was like you said. I get a black coffee, knock it down. Driving home, I was so tired. So uppers get me downers. So like how people pop
I've
Adderall.
heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, like kids take Adderall so they can go up. Like during college, I need to pop an Adderall so I can stay up for. Adderall is meant for people like me to tone us down, and that's why my mom never wanted to get me help because we had someone else that had like it was like Asperger's or something like that. But they took a pill, and he was like me. But then after that, he was like a fucking zombie, bro. He was just like this, like really low. So my mom seen that, and she was like, "Oh no, I don't want that for my son." But I feel like that was a really high dramatic case. Yeah. But yeah, so that's why I know that thing that I've been taking lately, it helps me like, because I'm going here, I'm here. It just helps me slow it down, just focus on that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. You know, so the challenge, of course, with that is when you think about the ways that you maybe felt at a disadvantage, going back to that book, basically like when you take a step back and you say like, now I have to do supplements, now I have to do things, you're actually doing a good thing for yourself, you know, and you're putting yourself at a better position to be like, you know, target whatever the achievement, the goal that you're trying to do, you know. And in the same way, that's how David was able to defeat this giant. He was way more prepared. He was very much more prepared than the giant was that was relying on his brute strength to get it done. And so I said all that to say that in the Central Valley, there's this idea of like being these big fish in a little pond. I'm too big for this. I'm too good for this. And you put yourself in this situation, so you want to throw yourself into the LA, you want to throw yourself into the Bay Area, the situations, because you're like, I'm too big for this pond. But when you go into these huge ponds, you just realize you're a little fish. And in the Central Valley, there's so much talent, there's so much people that are underdogs that we don't know how much we're worth until we put ourselves in a situation where we're like, we shine, you know? I would say, like, I wanted to say this earlier, it's like, you're like King of Los Banos, you know? Like, you're... But like,
unfortunately, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But like, you put yourself in a situation. You're in an underdog city, a city that most people won't be able to pick out of the map outside of the the general Central Valley area or whatever. But you put that on the map in such a way that you can say like, hey, there's talent that comes out of these places, and it's a breath of fresh air. It's like a light in like dark. Just when you're able to see somebody like is talented and is shining in these small spots, you know, that like. When you think about these cities or whatever, there's always like a celebrity or somebody that's done successful work that comes from this like podunk, you know, like sticks in the cuts of this, you know, town or whatever too. But all in all, like, it's really good when you represent like that, you know. And I've come to the place, I've kind of come full circle because I'm like, you know, it's like, nobody cares about the Central Valley. Nobody cares about Fresno, whatever, too. I would always say, like, oh, close to San Francisco when they ask about, especially when I was working for, like, that Spanish company and stuff, you know. They're like, what do you work? Like, oh, you live in San Francisco, right? I was like, oh, close, you know, like.
That's like 2 hours.
I know. Yeah, right. Yeah, but I was kind of like, well, nobody knows where I'm at, you know. So
yeah. As a father now and, like, doing all your stuff and you're content with all the things that you do you reside in Fresno? Or are you like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great place to grow up. You know, it's a great place to live, and it's a good place to live, raise a family. I think, well, so from the outsider's perspective, like crime rate's high, you know, and stuff. But I was like, I can afford a house in California in the Central Valley, you know, whereas most places, I can't afford like a $30 million home in LA or something like that, you know. But the other stigma or the other bad categorization that we have is that it's a crime riddled like spot. Like you find that in every place you go. There's a ghetto. There's a bad place to live. You just got to pick your spots. You know your scent. That's the other thing about it. It's like I know Fresno like the back of my hand, and I know where the hood's at. You know, and strategically, like you can put yourself in a place to be like, you know, like there's little hidden gems. Like my neighborhood's very quiet. Like it's cool to be the young people on the block.
Is that what you are?
Yeah. We're surrounded by old people, you know, and it's good because like, you know, when you to a place where like, you know, it's like a hidden gem, you know, like nobody really knows about the area, the neighborhood or whatever too. And so, but because of that, you can say like, this is the right choice. This is the right place.
Because I know nothing about Fresno, bro. What I knew from Fresno was the ABC 30 News when I was a little kid, and there was always a shooting. And I know, like
you guys get the Fresno news stations, right? It's the closest one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I think Merced does also.
Yeah, like the shootings, all the crime things. I always thought it's Fresno being hella shiesty, like you know what I mean. But not so like about what you were saying. I kind of want to ask you then. So, like big fish, little pond, and stuff like that, right? So, do you feel like you're selling yourself short then if you were not to leave because there is so many quote unquote hidden gems? Is that like you feel okay, fine? Then that's who you are. You are just you're just the big ass fish in the pond, as opposed to knowing that there is out there where you wouldn't be a little fish. You would be a little fish, and that's okay to start off as the little fish, but then conquer a bigger pond, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's a fair question, and I think the way I look at it is, anybody that's a big fish, be capable of building your pond in a bigger space. And so what I mean by that is like investing in the local economies. The only way a city, an area can become more successful is if we keep the talented people around, and you know, like we keep the economy. I mean, it boosts the economy. Like if you earn more and you spend locally, like it's just helpful for everybody. You know, like you have your local spot. Like let's just say in an ideal situation, you blow up. You know, like you're the most famous person ever to have lived in Los Banos. You know.
Yeah.
When you go to a local restaurant or whatever, like you're boosting in that local spot in the most beautiful way.
Okay,
you know?
I see where you're going with that.
And so you invest in the community that you're a part of, and I think that makes the pond bigger. You know, that builds the pond into bigger spots. So you're a big fish, but being a big fish, you have this opportunity to like grow.
Okay,
right?
I got what you're saying, because I definitely feel like, even though I know I'm not of anyone of relevance to any other state or anything like that, I know I get what you're saying, because that does happen to me sometimes when I go to like mom and pop shops in Los Banos, or I go to like Chili's or something. The server, the host, the assistant manager, whatever, they know who I am, and then next thing you know, hey, I got you here, and then next thing you know, I'm sitting down, and then they're like, here's a free thing on the house, and then I'm just like, oh, sick, you know.
Yeah, and the most beautiful part of that is that like people will appreciate you to like elevate your city. You know, like you're repping, even if you're not repping. You know what I'm saying? Like you're a representation. You know, my dad used to always give me the advice that said that you know, whenever we left the house, he was like, know who you are, know who you're representing. You're representing family. You're representing yourself, and you're representing everything that's a part of you. You know. Okay. And so if you have that mentality, like there's only. I think that like the problem with, I wouldn't say the problem, but one of the things that happens all the time is the same mentality that every young person has when they live in the Central Valley is that I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to do that. And then they stop, you know, repping that. Like it's good to have ambitions. And also like there's a guy named Leo Gonzalez that he's from Hanford. You know him? Like he's a big TikToker or whatever. He's still like, I think he moved to LA or whatever, and he's doing big things. But he still reps the Central Valley, you know, like he still comes back and does like local spots and like advertisements and stuff like that. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing because you're like investing back where. Yeah,
when you put it like that makes sense, because I definitely agree that. I definitely agree. Like, don't get me wrong. I want to move. I would have keyword. This is like what I was telling you about the pod thing. I wanted to. I don't really want to move to LA anymore. I have more ambition to move to Arizona or to Texas because it's more feasible for me, and the interest rates, you know, like I can get an FHA loan anywhere, but like I rather bang for my buck, go over there. But no, I agree with what you're saying, because I know when I do rep when I do rep Los Banos, right, and stuff like that, people are like, hey, this is not, and then I realize I'm like, damn, like, don't forget where you came from, you know, and
that's the bottom line.
I and don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm not forgetting where I came from, but then I also know like there's more for me, and sometimes that's what we were talking about in the beginning, that we're putting our own wants on the back burner. That it's like, yeah, I'm putting on my city, but then I put myself on when I could have done more, But in the recent months, because again, the pod's only been a year long, but the content itself has been 5 years or 6 years, right? But something I want to do, you said you had family in Los Banos, right?
Yeah.
So, in downtown Los Banos, there's that big ass warehouse. It's like, okay, so something I've always wanted to do, well, not always, but like recently, I want to make a creator, because down the street from that is the community center.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
So I would want,
tracks, right?
Yeah, right there. I want to make a creator community center. So, because everyone, I always say this shit, like everyone and their mom wants to be a creator in Los Banos, right? Whether it is for the girls, they want to be a lash tech that's making videos, or it's like a gym guy that is trying to be like making gym content or anything, right? In their own different respects, they want to make content, right? What I wanted to do, since in the grand scheme of things, I'm the biggest creator out of Los Banos, and I say that humbly. Right? Because it was, again, if you watch this whole thing, it's on accident, my whole shit. But I would want to provide that like safe space for creators in my town. So I always wanted to rent out that big ass place, since it's like a warehouse, and I want to make 4 different podcast setups like this.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And just have it like that. And of course, I would want to rent it out for profitability. But then, if I'm finding ways to get like stipends or like something from the state or something to where I can pay for it, then I could provide the younger generation with a place to where, hey, they can learn about the podcasting, they can learn about the lighting, because people like you and I just adamantly openly said, we're not videographers, we're not fucking editors, we're just people that want to do a podcast, right? So I could have people like Micah or the Gabe that know what I'm doing, know what they're doing, come in, have a class about create a lighting and all this shit, right?
Yeah.
And they can do that, and then have maybe a little gym set up, to where the gym guys can do their own thing, or a lash tech thing, There's something like
creative
that.
studio, or creative space,
studio. Because I know that they have one of those in San Jose, that this guy, the Culture Night Market, you know what that is?
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I met him, cool ass dude, the owner of that, nice ass dude. I went to one of his marketing events. I met him. We're supposed to do a pod whenever we lock it in, but like something like that. But I would want for Los Banos,
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, it's an opportunity for people to like network and also like the creators to be able to like share their ideas and everything too. So yeah, man, I indirectly, again, I went through that path of like wanting to get out. But like when you take a step back, I actually like my path is crazy, because I didn't envision myself like sticking around Fresno. I lived in Arizona, I lived in Sacramento, I lived in San Jose, and I be working in tech. I was working remotely, and I was like, I'm gonna move back to Fresno for a year, get my feet underneath me. My mom was going through some health issues and stuff at the time. I was like, and then sky's the limit, see where we're at. The first like month and a half that I moved back, I met my wife, and we planted roots. And
what was your favorite place that you lived so far then?
Sacramento, honestly. Yeah, Sacramento is an underrated city. I think it's really cool. It's got a lot of culture, without the busyness and shit in the streets that San Francisco has.
Okay. Yeah.
And the smash and grabs,
Yeah.
But it's got like, I also lived in a cool spot. I lived like right in the center of town by the Capitol, like walking distance for like bars and cafes and stuff, So
I want to learn why. Do you know why the Capitol is in Sacramento?
It was to draw like traffic to the Central Valley, right? Wasn't it?
No. I'm genuinely asking, because
I think so.
I don't know why the fuck it's in I would have thrown it in Frisco or the Bay. I don't know why the hell it's there.
It was centralized location. It's probably the center of like the middle part of California, close enough to like the gold rush at the time. So then maybe there was coming money that was coming through there at the time, but I don't know. I mean, it was back in the day, you know, when they made the decisions for Capital California.
But before the tech boom and
for sure,
that.
yeah. Silicon Valley was a thing, you know, like
Yeah.
So yeah, they built the Capitol like, you know, years ago and stuff. But I think it was also like to draw traffic in the center part of California. Also during the what was it called, the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl is when like everybody came from like the center part of U.S. like
Midwest,
Oklahoma, Midwest and stuff like that, and to the California. So it was kind of on the emerging like, you know, front. You know, everybody was coming to the center part of California because you know, agriculture. You know, everything grows here. So
yeah.
But man, I we can talk forever.
I know. I was about to say, like, there's a lot that I like. It's interesting because I know that's another reason now that this is the second person that I've had a podcast with. I've been having the privilege to talk to that has a podcast. That we could talk forever because there's so many jumping points that I could like. If this was my podcast, there is another 3 hours worth of different things that I could. Even though I'm gonna be honest that I didn't do any research on you. We just came that. Just off of this, like 2 hours, I could already run with so many different things off of you that I could ask you, and probably vice versa. It's just like, damn, it's just one thing after another. But like you said about maybe about part two, we could.
Yeah, let's make it happen, man. If you're down, I'd love to have you back.
It was a privilege to even come on the men's room and even share my story because I feel like there's a difference between knowing your worth and being arrogant, and I feel like I know my worth and I know that we're on a very high upscale trend in my community and my social media, that it's a privilege for me to have the opportunity to talk to you as my first podcast, you know. And then I don't even want to say 5 years, because 5 years ago, look where I was just in high school, right? So just in 2 years, wherever I go, I love that I have the opportunity to talk to you and share my story, and you're the first person that I get to even share my story with on their platform, you know. So I just want to say thank you, that me and all of my audience, I'm grateful for that. So thank you, man.
The pleasure is all mine. You know, it's a privilege. You know, thank you for your time, being generous with your, you know, you're being vulnerable, you know, and you know, giving us the opportunity to dig in a little bit more and to get to know you a little bit, you know. So yeah, you know, I'll tag you in all the socials, but George Valencia, man, I appreciate it. Epiphany podcast. Let's check it out.
Awesome, man. If you guys haven't, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the Epiphany podcast. But more importantly, just keep showing love to the men's room, man. This is a beautiful platform, and this is a beautiful safe space. This is somewhere I felt the most comfortable out of all, even out of all of my podcasts. There's so many things that I'm going to take into account in my own podcast. So this is the awesome safe space, man. Make sure to go check out the men's room, man. This guy's awesome, man.
Yeah, the alcohol helps too. Yeah.
Thanks,
Peace out, everybody.
Right.
Peace. Thank you so much.
Peace, man. All love.